Hey, what's up, all you Lawversators out there? I'm here. I'm here with another good friend of mine from the Navy. I'm gonna probably keep this theme going with a bunch of Navy guys because they're a lot of fun and they got a lot to offer. And we're here. It's my friend Nate McMakin, and we're gonna hang out and we're gonna Lawversate and talk about life and catch up just like with all the others and see what happens. And hopefully, like this is starting to turn out, and like I had an idea of or a vision of, this is going to be our life for your life, and hopefully we say some things and talk about some stuff that just helps you out, makes you feel good, or maybe learn something. Who knows? All right, Nate. So what's up, man? Tell folks how we know each other and
Okay.
what you think about this whole fiasco.
Dude, I love what you're doing. In some ways I'm jealous. I've had in the back of my mind, how do I engage more people? I'm kind of somewhat isolated where I live and the way I live. So it's like, this is perfect. You know, I love getting out and talking to, well, man, I haven't talked to you. It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
I got out
it's been
in 2014. We left the boat before then.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's been like a couple text messages. How you doing? What's, you know?
Yeah. Same, Facebook combos that everybody has, little quick passing by type stuff.
But it's been 10 years since we've sat down and had some coffee, talk shop, talk whatever. So how do we know each other? We were on the Mississippi together.
That's right.
We both, what's it called? Pre-commission unit,
Yeah.
We built the Mississippi electric boat shipyard, took it out on sea trials, did some runs after that. What year was it that you went back to prototype?
It was 2013. Yes, it was like September of 2013. It was the middle of the summer because I made chief in September that year as well.
Okay.
So
yeah, dude. So and on the boat, I mean, you're a mechanic. I was an electrician, so you kind of think, well, how much do these guys? But I was for 4 months. I was your supervisor, under instruct.
That's right.
Had a lot of duty days together, but I mean, you and I were we were hanging out a lot.
Oh yeah. Dude, we were close for sure. No, and I think we related a lot on a lot of life topics and issues, and
Yeah, I certainly didn't have the depth that you did at that time. You could talk the background and the depth that you could go to on some topics. I was just like in awe a lot of times, because I was just young punk, I was like, whatever, life is simple. Work your ass off. That's it. Go. That's all you have to do. Work hard.
I appreciated you for that. I did. I really did appreciate you for that. It was a thing that I admired about you for sure. No, that's good. So hey, but real quick, just before I let you keep going, I want to qualify some things. I'm trying to learn how to smooth over some of the Navy details that not all Navy people know, right? Last night I didn't do such a hot job. It was a little rough, but basically, and a big thing about this is going to be that this is eventually going to turn into a book. Where and I'm gonna definitely, I might be hitting you up for permission to share a piece of our video. You know what I'm saying? So, but basically, what Nate's talking about is, so I was on a submarine, and as I interview different people, we'll get different pieces and parts of my timeline. But I was joined the Navy nuclear mechanic back in 1998, went to boot camp, and then I was on one submarine out of Kings Bay, Georgia, and that's a big part of my life. And one day I'm going to talk to somebody where we're going to discuss a whole lot of the things that happened during that time. Then I went to upstate New York, like you guys heard in the second episode, if anybody's watched it. Went to upstate New York, and then from there, as a prototype guy who had a great, wonderful experience, like I talked about last night, I went to do new construction, pre-commissioning. And what that is like he said, we built a submarine called the USS Mississippi, which, hey, by the way, I'm living in Mississippi right now. which is so funny. So we built the USS Mississippi, Virginia class fast attack submarine. You can look it up on, YouTube and Wikipedia and all that jazz, right? But anyways, and that was in Electric Boat Shipyard, like you said, Groton, Connecticut, right? We were up there in the Northeast still. I geo-bachelored, and I lived, and I've said that before in another video, where I live 3 hours away from home. And so another thing about my life there in Connecticut was, and our closeness and our relationship was that over time, like I needed wholesome folks to hang out with. I got in trouble there for a little while, and was spending a little bit too much time with the bachelors and the real bachelors, not the bachelors because their wife wasn't living with them. And definitely at some points in my time there, Nate, you were a more family type oriented guy, even though you hadn't had any youngins yet. And that was like you and Bobby Stearns and
Bobby. Shout out to Bobby Stearns, man. Oh, I love that guy.
Then I'm going to do an interview with him, but I'm gonna make sure it's 45 minutes. We're gonna cut it short. I'm just gonna let him rant and rave for a little while, and I'm gonna cut him off.
I gotta wonder if he's still in the Navy. I mean, so when I got out of the Navy, I worked for Submarine Battery ISCA doing engineering for all the boats, right? So I was their travel guy, and every time I'd go to Kings Bay to go check out all the Ohio class boats down there, I'd stop by Bobby's house, we'd go out and hang out in the backyard and have some drinks, man. It was awesome seeing him. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. Every once in a while he'll go, hey, my wife saw you at the next day. Can you mention if you were in Kings Bay? I was like, I always say, yeah, I was there, but not really. He's always giving her a hard time. So he's a good guy. Love it. So
yeah, he's one of he's definitely one of my favorites. He's just an interesting character to say the least.
Yeah. So for this podcast, you're talking about like a little bit of explanation of submarines and shore duty, but have you talked much to like what is prototype? What are you doing there? What's
So the last video I did last night, we talked a little bit about it. Only thing we really discussed though was like basically you go from submarine life, and then you're supposed to go to shore duty and chill out, but if you go to prototype as a staff member, it's like you're still out to sea.
Yeah.
And you train, and I'll describe a little bit more. Even in this one, you train students to basically go do the same thing you just got through doing on a boat, right? And another thing I got to do today, and I'm going to be in trouble for last night. I know it, and hopefully everybody, I'm pretty sure that everybody that would get mad at me for episode 2 are going to watch episode 3. But man, we didn't give any credit or credence to the surface guys that I worked with and that I knew. I mean, granted, we did one really nice honorable mention for a guy who, is Master Chief on surface ships, and he was a great dude, friend of ours. But yeah, man, it's just where everybody in the nuclear Navy, hundreds of people would come together. It was like the mecca of all of us who were on submarines or surface ships, nuclear power trained. And what that means is like electricity, like Nate was talking about, him being an electrician, was produced by steam that came from a nuclear reactor. Our engines they were turbines that ran on steam that came from a nuclear reactor. And it's an interesting world, as people who were not in the Navy and not in that are going to find out if they watch these videos as we talk and we discuss. You'll be like, where did these dudes come from? Well, we came from all over, but we had a common thing that brought us all together.
Right. No, it's I mean, and you're in a job now where you're working nuclear power today. Correct?
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I haven't had a chance to ask, and I know it's something training, but maybe some more details on that. How's that going?
Yeah, man. So I'm a senior ops instructor is what it's called. Okay. And basically what that means is I train licensed nuclear. I can train anybody at a nuclear power plant because I'm instructor certified, right? Like, but I'm kind of like, I don't want to brag or anything because it's not like that. It's just I'm at the height of the nuclear power plant training department in the sense that I got all the qualifications to do a whole lot of stuff. And I mean, and listen, the way it works, and this is troublesome, and it'll be troublesome for a Navy guy. The way it works, man, it is if you're an instructor with even just a little bit of ability to learn about like what an INC tech does, like what an ET would have done in the Navy, like instrument and control type guy, then you could easily go from, hey, you're a qualified, certified instructor to go teach these guys about this thing that they do. Right. Now, granted,
that you've not done, but you know about.
That's right. And so I jumped in that same vein, in that same thought, I jumped right into being an instructor to operators who will do or have already done what I am not doing.
Yeah. So you're learning along the way then.
Say what?
You have to be learning along the way. I mean, there's got to be guys that come in there and go, it's cool that you're teaching this, but this is how it was, this is a little bit off, and you can kind of fine tune, but you're a smart guy. So you go, cool. You don't have an ego. You're a humble guy. You go, yeah. What do I know? You're the one that putting your hands on it.
And listen, when I first, that's right. And when I first started out, I had a big problem with, and I still do. I still mess around. Like I'm gonna get this fly. The fly swatter. So don't freak out when I get them.
Yeah.
But now he's messing with my seeds, man. I got some seeds over here. I'm about to get it.
Are you getting some germination going there? Is that what?
No. They're still in their package. Me and my son are way behind, but we're doing it. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's
yeah.
We can go
a lot to talk about. So.
Rabbit trails. So where was I actually? Oh yeah.
Oh, you're talking about teaching these guys on equipment that's not what you're used to or what you've worked on.
Yeah. And I was cool with it. But what I wanted to do and what I wanted to make sure that I conveyed was I basically want to be like, I wanted to say, like you said, being a humble guy, I wanted to say, look, man, no, this is, I'm only up here trying to facilitate a conversation and about this information. And maybe, yes, because I have resources and time that you don't have, I'll find some piece of information you haven't thought about or haven't seen before. I'm going to try to teach you something new. But for the most part, what we're doing is your proficiency at this job that you know as much about as I do, right? And in the industry, there's this attitude of like, oh, no, you're the expert. And I'm like, man, let's not be stupid. Like, why are we being dumb?
Dude, that's
I fought it the whole entire time. And I'll tell you what, and I even got comments in my observations. Let me tell you what ended up happening. These dudes respect me. Like, if any one of them's watching, shout out, make a comment, tell them all about it. Because I'm telling you, it's way better to do that. And listen, I'm learning easier because I've done that. Because it's better to keep the conversation doors open where and they'll teach me just as much as I'll teach them. And trust me, there's all kinds of stuff that comes up. Like I learned right off the bat, like when a procedure change, even with big procedure changes, there's not enough bandwidth for the organization to train these guys on all the details. They get you get as much of the details as you can, but there's information always that these guys don't know or didn't read or they missed the first time they went through, you know what I'm saying? And so like when they come through me, I'll basically be like, hey, did you know that this says this? And it's, it changed 2 years ago, but we're not really functioning this way. And I mean, I've even had to talk to upper operations management and been like, listen, man, I don't know nothing. I'm not a smart guy, but I'm trying to tell you, your procedure says something different than what you're telling people. And they're like, dang, you're right. So I've gotten a lot of job satisfaction out of that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But listen, you know me, I love to talk. So
sure.
Yeah, so I'm an initial. I'm not right now. I'm doing the initial license group, and I'm teaching an initial license class. There, it's like the casualty procedures, right? And one of the guys in the class is an engineer, and he's kind of he's not your typical operator. He's a little bit different of, kind of quiet guy, but he's, he's smart and he's funny and he's hanging with these operators. Dude, and at one point,
so I know how those guys can be. So it's
yeah, yeah, it is. It's a different world.
One of the things I wanted to ask you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hold on to that question. So anyways, I'm teaching this dude, and he's like, yesterday he looks over at the guy who's like got plant experience. He wasn't licensed, but he's been in the control room for a couple of years now. Yeah. And he looks over and goes, I know he said he's training me because, you got all this experience, but dude, why is he yelling at me?
That's forceful training. That's good training right there.
That's right. And that's what the other guy said. He said, he's just trying to get it in you, man.
So a question for you on that. So back to the topic of, they want you to declare you're the expert, like, kind of have that position of I'm the expert, I'm training you. How much of that do you think is rollover or carries over from like kind of the mindset that you have in the Navy, but specifically the nuclear Navy? Like, you do a lot of checkouts and you're getting qualified. And sometimes you hear, if you're going to be wrong, and like you're not wrong, they might not know either. But it's like,
that's right.
That's a real philosophy. And there's a lot of guys that get qualified on confidence.
Yeah.
Or get qualified on, their ability to self-promote. But
yeah.
But competence or their confidence does not necessarily mean that they have competence,
Yeah.
And that's one thing that's kind of suffering where there's a lot of people backing you up, and it's kind of a little bit safer than commercial nuclear power. But at the end of the day, the rubber meets the road. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know how this stuff works. And being wrong and being confidently wrong is not a benefit to anybody.
No. And listen, I'll tell you, and in the licensing process, some people might disagree with me, man, but I'm going to say this, and it's true. The licensing process requires that you prove a level of competency that is a little bit higher than anybody has to prove in the Navy, or you know what I'm saying?
I'm sure. Like, I'm not trying to degrade that process by any means, because obviously, it has an amazing track record. It's the number one power source we can go to. It's the safest out there, the lowest emissions, right? Like I don't take my comments as
no.
But there's a philosophy in the Navy that I think is I'm not sure if that's in engineering, we'll jump back to this, or we don't have to stay on this for too long, but engineers typically go, I don't know. They often say that more than they say, this is the problem. They might say, I don't know, but it could be these 10 things. Let's go figure out which of these is the problem and which is not. But it's a very different mindset than what we're used to in the Navy. So
I totally understand what you're saying. And yeah, man, there's a lot of commonalities between the two, but the licensing process requires, I guess, in a way, just a level of knowledge retention. That has a minimum requirement, and then to maintain that license, you just can't hide like you could in the Navy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes we intentionally hid people. It was like, listen, man, this guy is just not the best dude to be standing engine room upper level, right? But he is really good at making sure our training records are, in order, right? And listen, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. There was times in my career I was that dude.
For sure. Yeah.
So like,
it was me. I spent a lot of time on the drill team, whether it was, doing whatever needed to be done. And I could stand electrical operator, but man, the amount of time that I stood electrical operator compared to, I stood more engineering watch supervisor than I did electrical operator on the Mississippi. Because when you left, they go, okay, who's next guy up? Well, it turns out it's me. And I stood kick out engineering watch supervisor for, a good year and a half. I don't know. It was a while. So, it's interesting stuff, but you know what? It's important to also realize, like, that's okay. You know, that's one thing that you look at in the Navy, where it's like everybody you either have to be advancing, you got to go to the next qual, you got to do the next thing, you got to move on. That's a big difference. You don't see that in the civilian world. We got engineers that are, they're engineer level 3, but they don't ever move to a supervisory level. They'll be at the top of the engineering food chain with no reports indefinitely, or not even at the top of the food chain indefinitely. It's like, so what? They're happy with the job they're doing. They're happy with what their role is in the organization. You don't necessarily need to keep moving up, but the Navy is not that way, right? It's either move up or you're moving out, right?
Yeah. There's some minimum requirements of like, hey, you got to perform,
right?
And then what that does is for like managers and supervisors and stuff, man. It's like, dude, what do I do with this guy that can't perform?
Yeah.
Like how do I handle that? So yeah, that gets tough, but at the same time, man, I've never in both worlds, right? I have seen it wash out. You know what I'm saying? Like the process works. I mean, and there's a little dude inside of me right now that's screaming like, don't say that. No, we don't like the process.
Yeah. Well, you can always make it better, but you've got 60 years of the way they've been doing Navy nuclear power and commercial nuclear power, which are very similar, I'm sure. That's more similar than probably any other military to commercial operation. They probably have more ceremonies than anywhere else you could find, an example of. And
that's right.
And it's got a good track record, and it works. Yeah. And
it does.
I'm sure a lot of that is the Navy community feeds some high quality, excellent people into that know how to do the right thing. I mean, as much
don't tell the non-Navy people that.
Really, do you see some different interaction between the Navy and non-Navy folks?
Oh yeah, I mean it's not terrible. Listen, don't get me wrong. Like in my plant, particularly for sure, there are I have to every once in a while be like, look, man, none of this stuff is yours and none of it's new. It came from where I came from. Every once in a while I do that. I try not to because these guys get all like bent out of shape over it, right? Because I mean, if you think about it, it's two different worlds. You got, and I'm telling you, like most of the operators at this plant, operators especially. I'm trying to think of even one that was prior Navy.
Really?
Dude, I don't think. Yeah. Okay. Well, see, the problem here's the problem at this place. We live in a weird. I live in Mississippi, right? And in Mississippi, a lot of people don't want to live here. I like it. It's growing on me. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not trying to get out, right? But there is definitely things that if you catch me on the right day, you will hear me be like, Mississippi. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you can imagine somebody that's not as so like level-headed or accepting. Let's just say that. Not so much level-headed, but accepting as I am, how they could probably, be like, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of Navy people who come in here, spend a little bit of time and they duck. And that has hurt both emotionally and actually physically. It has hurt this particular plant.
Yeah.
And so they have a kind of standoffish feeling towards us Navy guys for that reason. But don't get me wrong, man. My supervisor's ex-Navy. His boss is ex-Navy. Right. Out of all of the instructors right now, we're all ex-Navy.
Okay.
All of the guys on my side of the house, right? Yeah. And then on the other side of the house, which is requal, the guys who like after you get a license keep training you. There are half of them are ex-Navy. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so even if the local boys who work their way up through the non-licensed operator ranks, are better at times and have a better grasp of things as a whole than a lot of Navy guys coming in trying to do initial licensing stuff, right? They're still just, we're all the same.
Yeah. No,
it's just they just don't have that Navy connection.
Do you see that the Navy guys tend to kind of move up the ranks quicker? Does that cause? I assume that's probably true based on their experience. But
no, it's probably equal.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it can easily be equal. The only reason why Navy guys might have an upper, have a leg up, right, is because they want to move up.
Yeah.
The issue is that a lot of the local dudes only want to get to a certain place and stay at that place for a while because there's all kinds of reasons, and I'm not trying to read anybody's mind. I want anybody to get mad at me out there. But there's your union before you become an SRO. You know what I'm saying?
So they want to stay union.
Yeah, so you can be a licensed RO that is still union. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just so many and you make as much money with not as much headache and responsibility, right? You know what I'm saying? And you get to touch stuff, you get to do things, and these guys know that. And when they know that, they're like, yeah, this is where I want to stay. And the only reason why they move up is because there's bigger bonuses and there is potential for more money. But even then, man, I'll tell you, like when the Navy guys do get here and they get that initial license, a lot of them are like pretty much right off the bat. They're like, dude, can I come to training? And it's funny, man. It's an interesting world, but it's perspective too. If you would have asked me a year ago, and listen, when I say a year ago, there's been a lot that has happened in the year.
Okay.
I have had multiple transformational experiences in my life, and 2022 was one of those years.
Nice.
And in a good way. It was a bad thing, but it turned out to be a good thing.
Well, you were talking on your first podcast. You're done drinking, dude.
Yeah,
dude, that's awesome. Congratulations, man. That's a huge step for you.
But Nate, I'm gonna be real honest with you. It took 2 times.
Yeah, that's the way.
No, you're right. It's great, and it's a big deal. It is, and I just I had to. It's not. I don't have anything against them, man. I don't have anything against people who enjoy it. I was imagining last night talking to Christian. I was like, we were talking about how much fun we could have with people that we worked with their prototype, and in my mind, I was like, I'm ready to do it sober. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll babysit all you fools while we're partying and dancing, and y'all are drinking. It's definitely a different world, and I definitely mourn because I definitely loved. It wasn't just the substance of alcohol itself. I also liked different flavors of things and different types of stuff. So that's that part of it, right? The diversity of the coolness of different ways of making stuff and how they tasted. That part of it I missed, but problem is I can't handle it, so I had to let it go.
Dude, that's a huge step. I'm proud of you, man. So I'm glad that you were able to say, I need to do this to make my life better. I need to do this for me. I need to do this for the people around me, and that's huge, dude. So I'm super super-stoked to hear that. That's awesome. Yeah. So
I'm a pro, by the way, on that note, just for the video's sake, not so much for you and me. I want to say it as often as I possibly can, man. I am a program guy.
You doing your 30? They still do that?
Say what?
30 meetings in 30 days. They still do that?
It's 90 meetings in 90 days. Yeah, it's hardcore. But I'm a program guy in the sense that, man, I believe that AA and the 12 steps. And hold on a second. Hey, Micah, Lorenzo's out in the front yard. I seen him out the window walking around. We have an Italian Greyhound, and he's just a bougie, and he's an old man now. He's an old man, and he's just if he was bad when he was a pup, dude, he's twice as bad as an old man. He's like, y'all, pamper me. I am the king, and he looks like one of those little dogs that like Egyptians used to get buried with,
Oh yeah, all leg.
Yeah, and he's a miniature, so he's just the most funniest thing. But anyways, program guy, whether it be, I'm either, I'm not so keen on some of the stuff that tries to get into, get away from, that's real hardcore agnostic or atheist, man. I think they're making a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if it works though for them, I say do it, but for me, man, if it's AA or Celebrate Recovery, yeah. I'm like, dude, if somebody's like, hey, I'm struggling, dude, I will go down the list of like, and I'm not even in the programs, I'm not even a year sober yet. I've done it twice. Once I did it for almost a year, and now I'm about to be a year sober. And I'm telling you, even being kind of new to it, I'm so anybody that's struggling and that's got a problem, and even if you don't and you have like any kind of hang up, man, check out those 12 steps.
Yeah. Well, and you have your faith, so why not, like you would be a fool to think that that's not part of this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was easy for me. Like when they're like a higher power, I'm like, yep, there's only one.
There's something, that is like lifting from that approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no ability to control this. This is out of my hands. This is only,
right.
It is only a higher power. So, I probably never talked about this when I was in the Navy, and I probably haven't talked about it in 10 years. But whenever I was in high school, I did 21 days in an in-house recovery center. I did meeting, it was like weird because that wasn't for alcohol, it was for some other stuff I was getting into, but it was Narcotics Anonymous. And, obviously, I drank when I was in the Navy. I still, I've been off all the other dumb stuff I did in high school. And it's been, I don't know, however many years that's been, 20 years or so. So now most systems would say those two things are not exclusive to each other. Like they're so I'm not saying I don't meet the clean bill of health. I'm not claiming anything. So don't shoot me. But that's the experience that I've had with it. And I thought it must have been 90 and 90, but I remember whatever it was, the meeting every day for however long, so that's good stuff. So, dude, if you run into something, you want to talk to somebody, I'll be your cheerleader every day.
All right, man. Of course.
Here for you.
Of course.
So, hey, let's see. We got a long list. I don't know where. So how about this, Dustin? We always were like, I remember when.
Hold up.
Go ahead.
Hold up. I want to know before you go down any more deep paths. How's life, man? How's the family?
That's what I wanted to talk about. Perfect. So we always gave you a hard time on the boat. We're like, dude, how many kids do you have? Like 12, 13, Baker's dozen? I mean, like what? And I was, you knew me when I was in my middle 20s. It was, why would I ever have kids? I can do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it. I'm not spending money on stuff. Just you are crazy for doing what you're doing, dude. I've got 4. The oldest is.
You got 4. You just caused the wife sitting here being all quiet, like doing stretches and she was like, "Shut the front door."
Dude, so I'll tell my story a little bit because it's a little bit it's abnormal, the kind of the way we came across this. So we got out of the Navy 2014, moved back to West Michigan where we live now. Jake's originally from West Michigan, bought a little house. Did a remodel, moved into it. We ended up building a house after that a couple years later. And anyways, when we moved out of the Navy, it was like, well, we kind of talked about this. Is kind of one of the reasons we wanted to get out of the Navy. We were like, with being gone as much as I was on the Mississippi, it was like, well, how are we going to do this kid thing in this scenario? Let's get out. There were other reasons to get out, but that was one benefit. So we tried to have and we went a long time, no kids, had things looked at. They're like, just go have kids. You don't have any reason why you can't have kids. You just want to do
you're
it.
fine.
And we're like, okay. So we keep trying to have kids, and that just never wasn't panning out. So we said we looked into adoption, and we kind of looked at all the different options: international adoption, the stuff that's regional. Looked into foster care. We ended up getting licensed to be foster parents. We got our oldest, Mackay, who we've since adopted, but he came to us at 10 months old. He was a foster kid. Took care of him, loved him. It was an awesome experience. My next, Jace, he came to us. Let's see, he came home from the hospital with us. So that was, 6 months later. And then, okay, now we got 2 kids. We're parents now. We were parents at 1, but we're really parents at 2. And, Jake says, yeah, I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. And so, well, I don't know what changed, but the Lord has blessed us, and we're going down this path. And so we ended up adopting Mackay in August of, I'm going to get the year wrong, 2021. Mm-hmm. My daughter Charlotte was born November 1st, 21. Actually, 12/01. So she was almost a Halloween baby by 1 minute. She was a November baby, which is kids. And then we adopted Jace. He was already with us, right? Both, Mackay and Jace were both with us, but they were adopted in. Our Jace was adopted in January, and then we had Flynn July, this last July. So he's he's 8 months old. So we went from no kids, can't even have kids, to in about a 6-month time frame from the transition from foster care to adoption, and then having a biological child to having another biological child. And we're still, and at 4 kids, people start to say, are you guys okay? Is something, you guys a little bit crazy? And so, Jade and I looked at that problem and said, well, might as well have another one, So we're going to see if we can't make that happen, and people will know we're crazy. And then we're coming for you, Law.
Dude, did you tear up over there? Brandon's crying, bro.
Oh, good.
I'm crying, man.
I don't know.
It's so good.
I feel like I've told that story in my head sometimes, and I get emotional just thinking about we are blessed.
Bro. Oh, man.
We tried to plan, and God laughed. And then he said, I got something better for you.
Check this out.
Because I couldn't imagine my life today without my, Mackay, Jace, well, all 4 of them. But, had it been our plan, we would have never been foster parents. That wasn't something we wanted to do from the get-go. But, God opened doors, and, it's it's been a wild ride. So now my oldest is 5, and we've got 4. Just turned 5 in January, and it's been awesome. I love being a dad. I don't regret it for a second. We kind of live out in the country. We've got a little bit of space out here, so the kids are they're running around. Shoot, my oldest is riding a quad now by himself. I mean, it's just crazy out here, and we're always busy, and I just wouldn't have it any other way. Jade's like, we ever going to go on a vacation? I'm like, we're on vacation every day. We get to live out here, all these kids, work this farm. How much better could this get?
Where were we?
I was giving you the lowdown on
the family.
We got 4 kids.
That's what I remember what I wanted to ask. The farm, what's going on there? Like, I know you want to talk about it, but tell me about your situation first.
Yeah. Okay. So, we've been at this for about 4 years now. So I guess I'll start with where we're at. So we live in West Michigan, Northwest Michigan, Lower Peninsula, north of Muskegon. No one will know where Muskegon is, but
I do. I know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, we're like 30 minutes.
Funny story. When I first started my, my big old theological change that I used to always talk about, how, you all used to make fun of me about being Jewish. I had planned on moving to Muskegon.
Why?
Because there was a ministry there. There was people there that I wanted to be connected with. But, yeah.
Did you ever, and you traveled here?
No, I never did. It was literally like, I'm going to go see it because that's where we're going to go live. And I never ended up doing so.
I didn't even know that was, I don't know. Yeah. I didn't even realize that was in
small
this
world, right? Small world.
Our main demographic, I mean, we have a lot of Dutch influence in this area.
Yeah.
But, anyways. We're in Northwest Michigan. We built our house on a piece of property that we bought from Jade's grandparents. So we're on the kind of the opposite side of the property from where their original homestead is. And we built, you build a house. There's you've got 3 years of things that you can't do when you're building. So you do them after you move in, landscape, whatever, build a garage, that kept us busy for a while. And it was just we had this farmland that nobody was utilizing. The soil here is not, it's not, people aren't tripping over themselves to try to get rent for corn and soybeans, because it's a lot of real sandy soil. Yields aren't great, takes a lot of fertilizer. So I kind of looked around and tried to find local farmers that would want to farm it. And I had some interest, but nobody was just was real excited about it. And so kind of the tipping point that got our foot wet, that kind of created this snowball that is now completely out of control. Well, I don't know, I love it. But if you ask Jade, she would say, yeah, Nate is completely out of control. He is trying to farm the whole world. But the tipping point was we had a local farmer that planted one of our fields into a hay field. He cut it for 1 year, and he came to me one day and just said, I got to downsize what I'm doing. I've got other stuff I'm trying to do. He says, I know we had a deal that I was going to have this for a while. You don't owe me anything. We're square, but I'm not going to farm it anymore. All right, cool. So I looked around, tried to find somebody else that would, farm this hayfield or cut and bale this hayfield. Struck out. So I started doing the math, and I go, okay, well, I could buy, a hay bind, and I could buy a rake. I was able to scrap. I mean, look, one of the pieces of equipment that I got, it was some farmers yeah, it's out in this field. You can have it. Just get rid of. Just take it. And it was pieces. It was a Fransgard hay rake tedder that is from Italy, so you couldn't get parts for it. So I'm measuring with calipers, bearing size. I had to make, get some shafts custom machined because I couldn't get parts, but it worked for a couple years. It still wasn't ever quite right because I couldn't get real repair parts for it. I had to build parts for it. Anyway, so scrapped together some cheap capital stuff, used an old 1950s tractor, which is way undersized for the 9-foot hay bind I was pulling. But we baled, 1,200 square bales that first year.
Wow.
And I almost killed my help. It was during COVID. It would have been, so this would have been 2020. No, I don't remember. Anyways, it was 4 years ago. Yeah, so it would have been 19. So I had a guy that was playing rugby locally. He was from South Africa originally. Couldn't get home because COVID happened, and so he was like, "I need it. I could use an extra job, but I can't work a real job. I need kind of a cash job." And I was like, "Well, I need somebody to stack hay bales," and that guy stacked 950-pound square bales on wagons one day for me, and I thought, I was like, I can't ever do this to somebody again. I'm gonna kill him, But he was in really good shape, and he did it. So, anyways, a lot of fun. That was how. So, getting that hay field was what kind of started the whole thing going. That turned into a lady down the road had some heifers that she was going to take to the sale barn, and why don't you bring them here? And we fenced off some, and it's just every year the farm has grown. We've fenced in more pasture. We planted more stuff. And now we're, last year we fed 21 families their yearly supply of pork and beef. So, it's not a large farm. It's, it's not even, people ask, like, are you full-time farming now? Well, I'm like, yeah, but I'm also got a full-time job because it doesn't necessarily pay the bills quite yet because it's still growing. But yeah, I mean, we've got, I think, 20 head of cattle. We'll raise some broilers, and we'll probably do around 20 hogs this year that we rotate through wooded lots. But it's also not real conventional farming. That's so kind of why did I get into it? I guess the how was getting that hayfield, but the why was more. We didn't like what we could buy at the grocery store from how is it produced, what's in it, and what's its impact on the environment. I'm not like a crazy. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say he's crazy, but I'm not trying to save the world. I am, but I'm not like I'm not fully sold on all the hippy dippy stuff. But I do believe that our soil is very important. And to farm in a responsible way, so we're not doing tillage, we're not using glyphosate, we're not using synthetic fertilizers. Some exception to the synthetic fertilizers for some hay fields that we lease off the farm, but everything that's on the farm, it's all the hippy dippy stuff, trying to build topsoil, and that really sold us. And then just the other part was it just like. We just thought that this lifestyle that we're, I guess, creating, what more could you ask for our kids? And they love it. They absolutely love it. And they're all this because you've got lots of kids. They're all different, and it's interesting to watch how my kids' different aspects of the farm grab their attention and they connect with it in different ways. My daughter Charlotte, she's all about chickens. We lose her 4 to 5 times a day. She's in the chicken coop gathering eggs 4 to 5 times a day. She's 2, so that's fun, her around. My oldest son, he loves when we have. So we don't farrow hogs, but we get feeder hogs in. He'll get in there with the hogs, and they're in a wooded lot. And they're pretty friendly because we get them when they're little, and he'll be in there running around with him. And my second, Jace, is he's all about the equipment. So whether it's riding on tractors or riding on big trucks, whatever. He loves it. So it's a so some of those reasons are why we did it, and then some of those reasons are why we're still doing it, because it's just been awesome. So that is
so cool.
That's farm in a nutshell.
Yeah, and so you're just not yet. What are you doing for full-time work?
Yeah. Okay. So. I guess a little bit of background. Got out of the Navy 2014. Didn't have a job. Most guys, it's hard to. A lot of guys, I shouldn't say that. A lot of guys are better than me, and they have a job lined up. The day they get out, they go start their new job. I didn't have anything. I was kind of knew where I wanted to live. That was kind of the most important thing, and then find a job was the second thing I needed to do. And so, Chief Heinzroth. He was our EDIB chief. Him and I served together on the NR1. He was our first EDIB chief on the Mississippi. He was in the squadron, and about 3 months after I got out of the Navy, the submarine battery ICA sent out an email to all the squadron and said, "We're looking to hire a support guy, and we want you to recommend somebody because you're going to have to work with them too. You're going to have to support this guy coming out and doing all this." The support of the on-site support. And so he gave me a call and said, "Hey, are you interested in this?" And I was like, I don't have a job and I need to. So yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. But it also sounded like it would be fun. He passed my name along, and before you know it, I was hired in as the submarine battery ICA, mainly doing inspections. But anytime something was broken or they needed somebody on site, San Juan's battery caught on fire, whatever, ran down there, and all the wild stuff you deal with. So that was fun. I did that for 2 years.
By the way, Craig is a subscriber to my YouTube channel. He's one of the 28. I'm working my way up. I made the mistake of putting that first video on both YouTube and Facebook. And when you really are trying to get a lot of YouTube traffic, you gotta kind of solely use YouTube, because people will just Facebook. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, he's really interested. I'm probably gonna end up doing a Lawversation with him. But go ahead, keep going.
Well, I'll look forward to listening to it, and shout out Craig for reaching out to me for getting my first out of the Navy job.
Yeah, he's gonna be an honorable mention for this video for sure.
Nice. So I really enjoyed doing that, but I was gone a lot. Like, they're based out of Crane, Indiana. I didn't live down there, so for me it was like I'm either on an airplane flying to a sub base, or I'm working out of Crane, or I'm working at home some, but I wasn't working at home. I was mostly on travel for that job. And I think one of the years I flew 125,000 miles, stayed in a hotel room 200 plus days in 1 year. It was just, it was wild. It was a lot of being gone. But so anyways, 2 years later, I get a guy who I go to church with here locally said, "Hey, we're looking to hire an engineer." I got my, the Thomas Edison degree before I got out, so I didn't use my GI Bill for that. But I got it like maybe 6 months before I got out of the Navy, and he's like, you've got a engineering technology degree. We're automotive, so it's a little bit loose. So let's just give you come in, interview, meet the team. We'll see if this is if this could be a fit. And that was 6 years ago. So and it's amazing because I certainly didn't know how to be an engineer when I started, but now I tend to be the person that answers a lot of people's questions about how our parts work, how they need to be designed, how they need to go together, and I mentor a lot of junior engineers. So it's like, how did I go from kind of a weird, unusual background to be in this role to what I'm doing now? I guess to give a little bit of scope to my engineering job. So I work for a smaller engineering company. We build automotive parts for commercial or for just residential, whether small, C-class vehicles, small trucks. EVs and hybrid vehicles have been big for us for the last couple of years. Yeah. I've got a show and tell part here, if you can see it. This is kind of the last one that I launched and put into production. So this particular part is on the Ford Lightning truck. So
okay,
those trucks have a traction motor in them. They need a lube and cooling function for the traction motor and the gear set that's in that traction motor. And that's what our part does. So it does smart communication over a vehicle bus. It provides a lube and cooling function. And we did this for Ford. We make one that looks to most folks, you'd say that's the same part. Looks almost the same. We make it for GM that goes in the Hummer. Yeah. Actually, every GM vehicle is like the same transmission variant, and so we're for all of those. Kind of same thing with Ford too. And then, so anyways, I won't take credit for this. I didn't. It wasn't just Nate McMakin that designed this thing. There's a whole team of people that do this, right? But actually, this one in particular, I said it was for the Lightning, but it's actually we designed it. I did most of the design work for this variant on a Dana transmission. So Dana axle, they're just called Dana. This was they did a traction motor for who was that? It's all the high end FCA stuff, or Maserati or whatever. It's a variant of the 1T fit or the Ford Lightning. We did an e-pump for them too. So it's been fun. I've kind of learned a lot about, like when you're in the Navy, you think you know about stuff. Like you're like, oh yeah, I know how motors work. I know how pumps work. Like, the level of knowledge required to operate a motor or pump is much different than the details that are needed to understand how to design a motor and pump. So it's like,
dude, I'm thoroughly impressed.
So it's like, so I got to learn, so some of the things I've learned along the way are like, how do you design a motor? And, what software we're using to do. So, we're using a software package that helps support that, but that tells you what magnet grade do you want to use. how big of a stator do you want? How long? What OD? What ID? How many windings of what gauge wire do you want to put on there? What kind of PCB? What size MOSFETs do you put on those PCBs to create that signal? All of that stuff. All these pumps have a G rotor style pump mechanism. That probably doesn't mean anything to you. It's like think of a hydraulic pump.
Cool.
Think of a hydraulic pump, how it has two spline shafts that spin that make high pressure hydraulic. It's that concept, except there's an outer lobe and an inner lobe that interface with each other that create a positive displacement pump. It's basically just the economical version of a external gear hydraulic pump. And that's what the majority of these lube and cooling pumps are for what we build for the automotive market. So anyways, every single one of those is custom. How loud do you want it to be? How much displacement do you want it to be? How fast you want that motor to spin? All those things feed into the design. And it's man, I tell you what, it's fun. I enjoy the problem solving side of it, and the design side of it. So it's been a good fit for me. I'm really happy with where I'm at now. I stayed very busy, but it's been a lot of fun. And the other side of it is I also get sucked into like the hardware and software side of things too. So making motor is also not trivial. So I got another one there's another motor back here on my bench that's so most motor applications they have some type of permanent magnet on the rotor, right? For 12-volt bus automotive motors. Yeah. If you've watched the news, China is talking about they're going to stop production or stop shipping rare earth magnets, that's the impact to the United States and Japan if they do that is going to be huge. Like it's a big deal. So one of the things we've been working on, because we kind of have seen this coming, but we really now that that's a reality or is likely a reality, we kind of are stepping it up into second gear, is doing a motor design that doesn't use a permanent magnet. So the way that works is there's a stamped lam stack that's for the rotor, and it has metal in certain geometry and then air gaps in certain geometry. So how that rotor aligns to the stator pole will create torque without the need for a permanent magnet, but the motor commutation scheme is different. The way your software has to be written is different. So that's one of the things that I've been trying to solve is how do we do motor control for that type of motor type, which is somewhat new for at least for automotive industry. Synchroreluctance motors have been a while.
So what you're saying is you are in the process of design stuff that is geopolitically based.
It's also a cost save. It's also a cost save to not have magnets. I've got this is a water pump that goes in the Ford 2.5 liter Atkinson engine. Working on takeover business on right there. This won't sound like a lot of money to the Navy folks or commercial nuclear power. I think the rotor on that's like $10. Like that's a crazy expensive component for an automotive style component for the whole thing doesn't even sell for probably like $70 or whatever dollars. So like the fact that the rotor, and the magnets in there cost that much, and you could design the motor to delete that. I mean, that makes you way more competitive. But then you add the China not shipping rare material on top of that factor, and it's like we have to move on this as quickly as we can, which is good that we've got a head start. Having done it, having already started on it, but there's still, we don't have a working proof of concept yet. So once you cross that hurdle, it's like you can build one. Well, now we can figure out how to build 1 million of them, but we need to build that first one. That's everything we want it to be to get us started.
Dude,
all that makes sense.
Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna tell you just so you know, and I'll leave this in the video. I don't know if I'm gonna take it out. What I'm about to say next, and that is I'm probably gonna take that clip of what we just got through talking about, and I'm gonna I'm gonna make it a shorter thing and use it for some clickbait, if you don't mind.
Okay, no, good, do it. I love it.
Yeah, man. If I can get some real, honest, truthful clickbait out there, you know, that like people will be like, "What? China, no magnets? What are you talking about?"
Well, I mean, yeah, that's if you do a quick Google search, that the information around rare earth magnets.
Oh yeah,
and that's been. I love whenever I'm working on something that has like a bigger scale to it, right? Because it's like in some ways, like if I take 3 steps back and I'm not an engineer working on a product and I'm just looking at what we're doing in this world and how it affects each other. I mean, China has this plan. They've had that in motion for the last at least 10 years, if not 20 years. Like they own all of the mineral rights in the Congo. They basically bought the whole country. And that's where the majority of this, especially cobalt, that's a big one, comes out of the Congo. And so, man, it's this is a play that we could have saw coming. What's interesting is how much as a country we're pushing for electric vehicles because it saves climate change, which you could, I won't get into whether or not, that's 100% real or not, or somewhere in between. The reality is it's probably somewhere in between. But we've got China that now owns the Congo, and they've got, what are we creating over there? What are the type of emissions we're creating to go get these rare earth materials? And what's the humanitarian crisis that's being created in Africa as a whole, based on the need for all of these rare earth materials to do battery electric vehicles, and and it's not just battery electric vehicles. It's like magnets for motors. It's the batteries themselves, but it's also all the electronics, your iPhone, your everything. It needs those rare earth materials, and maybe we will find a way to save the world in 100 years from now. But are we also concerned with how are we going to prevent a humanitarian crisis that's in front of our face today that's happening? Yeah. If you look at the working conditions over there was a journalist that went over there, and I think he goes, I almost died doing this because they weren't really happy I was there, and I kind of had to duck and cover a lot of times. But the things that he brought back and saw with how they're getting their labor force to do all the mining operations. I mean, you've got women and children out there working, babies strapped on ladies' backs, trying to mine, and you're just like, yeah, climate change. I'm there. I mentioned, farm. I want to save the soil. I think it's not as black and white as we like to make it seem. And I'll say that being one of the guys that was very black and white in my mid-20s, everything was black and white. And you know that because you knew me, right? Yeah. It's like,
I remember.
Just work hard and go. Like, it's like it was so simple. And it's my worldview has changed so drastically over the years with realizing how gray the areas are. And anyways, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. And this is kind of maybe specific to this, but or in general. I mean, are there things that you look at that you think, like 10 years ago, this was my perspective. Today, this is my perspective, and what kind of led to those changes?
Whew.
Probably a lot there.
That's a question, man. Oh man, I a lot of stuff, to be honest with you, from what you probably remember or could recall, hasn't changed a whole lot. I'm still maybe things around the way that I see it has changed, but for instance, I'm still, I consider what's going on in the Middle East very important from a biblical eschatology, end of days, end of times viewpoint. I'm even more so probably than I was before, tracking what goes on in the world, but particularly, with Israel and in the Middle East, right? so yeah, geopolitical things that we just got through talking about. Oh man, yeah, like I try. So in my second video that you haven't watched yet, right? I really loved what Christian brought up. He talked a lot about the circle of concern versus the circle of influence, the 7 habits, of highly effective people, Stephen Covey, right? And for me personally, for what we've already talked about, right? There's a whole lot of definite serenity prayer aspect to that as well. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the
wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, wisdom know the difference, right? And so, yeah, it's good stuff. But
so
yeah,
specifically, this is gonna really turn into a Lawversation now. Like, what are the things in the Middle East that you go, this ties to that, and it's concerning for this reason?
So I gotta be careful.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
You can imagine
if you want to say, let's talk about something else.
Oh no! You're good. You're good. I'll do the best I can to not get us to still be able to put this out there. So, hey, real quick, on your settings, on your audio,
am I quiet?
Does it provide you an option to do echo cancellation?
Yeah, and it's checked.
It's already checked. Okay.
There's also an option that says stereo audio. Echo cancellation must be off to use stereo audio.
Don't use stereo audio. That's like if we had like a sound system or something. Okay. What I'm hearing myself, I think, through your computer, which is fine because I think it's automatically going to get canceled.
I can hear you just fine, so it might help if I turn my volume down
a little bit. Okay. All right. So to your question. Say what?
Do you hear an echo?
Not as bad. That worked.
I went down to like half volume, so I'll have to really listen. But
can you hear me though? For real? I want you to be able to hear me. All right. Good. Okay. So the rise of this has always been a thing, and this is why it's very similar to what we used to talk about. But so it's kind of still the same in the sense that I pay attention to what's going on in Islam, in Muslim circles. And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail why, just because I don't want to, I don't hate anybody. I love people. I have lots of friends, and my brother especially, who have been over the Middle East. I know that I'm not judging, individuals. I'm not judging even, the religion in itself. I could definitely, from a theological, like, hey, I don't agree with, and I think, this or that, I could do that, and I have those viewpoints, and they may come out later, not today. But I do believe there's a very big key. After we, separated, I ran into a guy who spends a lot of time over there, and he's a really smart dude. He's written like a bunch of books and provides all this stuff for free. His channel is one of my channels that I subscribe to, which is available on. If you go to my channel and you subscribe to it, you can see all the channels. I only got rid of a couple. You can see all the channels I subscribe to. Yeah. His name is Joel Richardson, and anyways, he works over there. He actually works with people who are Muslim, that him and that Muslim person argue, and the Muslim person calls him the devil. And they're buddies. When he calls his house, his wife's like, in Arabic, I forget what the title is. She calls him the devil's calling, and he comes over and he talks to him, right? So that's how in tune he is with the world over there. And I agree with some of the things that he believes. I kind of agreed with it when you last knew me. I'm really, because of him and all the research he's done and how I listened to him, I really agree with it. Plus, he's not a faker, right? So like he believes a certain way. He's in disagreement, but he's over there with people, helping people evangelize. Yes, proselytization, right? A group of people that want to kill him because he's trying to evangelize them, right? So he's not, him and his organization are not, they're the real deal. And they love people, and they love those people, right? And so, and they, like I said, their whole lives are involved there. So I pay attention to anything, like he's talking about and that he says. And there's another, I got this really crazy news thing from a guy who's real connected to Israel, where I get behind on it on my phone, but it's a Telegram. I don't know if you've ever heard of that app before, but like I'll send you a link and everything. This guy's name is Amir Safari. And actually, from a biblical viewpoint, I don't agree with him, but I'm telling you, I'm watching videos of stuff happening in Ukraine that don't get reported on until the next day.
Yeah, like nice.
This guy's he's connected into the Israeli government. He has connections and stuff where people, and there's points where he's like, hey, I know everybody's got a question about what just happened. I can't tell you yet. I will be able to tell you probably in the next day. Like stuff like that. And I've also checked him out, and while there's a lot of things I don't agree with him on, the information is really cool.
Sure.
Really, really informed. I'm pretty sure he's probably said something about China and rare earth magnets, and I just missed it because I'm I'm say up to date. You know what I'm saying? But so of course I'm keeping a good outlook on the geopolitical thing. How's the Palestinian Israeli conflict going? What's going on over there? How are the Muslim nations, right? Like right now, the big thing in the news is Iran and Saudi Arabia being friends or quote unquote friends for the first time in a long time. And who brokered that deal? China. Like we just got through talking about, you know what I'm saying? Like those kind of things, man, I'm paying attention to that kind of stuff. And, because I believe that all of the stuff that people, talk about, make movies about, or either ignorantly talk about it for the fun of it, and it's just a part of a TV show or a movie, or they're like studied, 5 PhD theologians, you know what I'm saying? Either way, I definitely a concern of mine.
What are some of the key events that you'd focus on, and you say this thing happened and it is concerning, so
here's the thing. One of the things that has definitely changed since the last time we talked. I don't have a lot of times. I don't have a whole lot of like, boom, boom, boom. Here's the key event that. Listen, once you see this happen, you know what I'm saying? Right. But I do, like, for instance, the one that I just described, that's huge, right? When the Muslim world unites, and when I say, I don't mean like just unite in their hatred for America or their hatred for Israel. I mean like what's going on right now with Iran and Saudi Arabia, right? To me, that's like, whoop, I'm watching. Could that be the start of a thing, right? Yeah. Man, the Abraham peace accords with Donald Trump and all that stuff taking place, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. What is happening? Because a lot of people who know and they compare, biblically speaking, timeline things and stuff. One of the significant events that people will disagree on when it happens or how it happens. Are there two Gog Magog wars? Are there two places where certain countries unite? And it's difficult because you got the book of Ezekiel, which is a prophetic book, which is always, a hindsight 2020 type thing, and then you got the book of Revelation and you got the book of Daniel, and, bringing all those things together, it's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. And even the most studied people have a difficult time with it. But when you see like Southern Muslim nations called out specifically in the book of Ezekiel saying, we're your friend, Israel. I'm waiting for them to, now that they've done that and they say we're all in support, and it's still kind of growing and it's still sort of happening. I'm waiting for them to be like, just kidding, stab you in the back, right? Because that is literally described specifically in chapters of the book of Ezekiel. Like, it's like these kings of the south will join against, Israel, against some kings of the north or a king of the north. And I'm being very, very, like, people will get mad at me because I'm being so vague, right? But these things will happen. But then after a skirmish and after a argument or whatever, some think it's going to be a mini war or a couple wars. The southern guys are going to be like, just kidding, we're friends with the north and we hate you and we're coming after you. So a situation where Iran and Saudi Arabia, right? So here's Israel, here's Iran, here's Saudi Arabia, are buddies, makes me go, that could be a future ground laying thing for, upheaval that ends in or lands on a major global conflict, a World War III.
Sure. What's your you're talking Saudi Arabia and Iran? Was it not there was an oil trade that took place? I think it was probably a couple weeks ago. It was like somewhat revelation. It was, instead of trading oil in U.S. dollars, it was in the Chinese RMB. And I think that was Saudi Arabia selling oil to China.
That's right.
Is there any? I'm interested in that, not from a biblical perspective, but more from like a dollar perspective. Like the fact that we've forced or convinced, however you want to see it, the entire global economy to trade in dollars, all while we print trillions of dollars, is like significantly to our favor. I don't know why they put up with it for as long as they have, but the fact that is now, we've got some groundbreaking things that are happening that's changing. At least in some very specific cases, it's still a very small percentage of the total global trade that takes place. But is there any tie on that specifically to the things you're looking at? The fact that the currency has changed.
Oh yeah. So I'm not real. So I mean, dude, I talked to a pastor friend of mine yesterday, and he said that this lady came to his church, and she basically was like, cryptocurrency is the mark of the beast. It is the Antichrist system, and you need to be warning your people. And he basically gave her a nice chill, like, that's not our focus, and here's what our focus is.
Right.
And she loved his answer, which is a not normal thing, right? Normally, those kind of people are like, "Oh, you're wrong. I'm leaving. I'm not hanging out with you people," right? And so that was a cool thing. But when I'm just using that as an example of, like, I'm not real when it comes to the currency stuff, right? I do believe, and I focus on it, and it's important for me for the now, like you talking about for you, right? Outside the biblical thing. But when it comes to, like, these things that I care about and I'm paying attention to, like you asked, right? Oh, absolutely. Like when I hear, and this all kind of goes into the whole them sitting down and brokering a deal between Iran and, Saudi Arabia, right? Two sworn enemies. When I see, and it isn't just so much about China and Russia, right? It's more just kind of when I see this global effort to, I wouldn't even say effort, just happenstance, like, I was trying to think about this while you were talking just a second ago. In a response is, I'm talking about potential. I'm talking about possibility. I'm not, because it's a concern and not an influence thing. I roll around in my head and I look at things and I hear what some of these people that I trust say. And when it comes to the currency piece, I kind of have an underlying viewpoint. I don't know how long I've really felt this way. I think I felt this way for a long time, that somehow, some way, America's getting taken out of the picture. And I don't mean like wiped off the face of the earth. I mean just very
less
like,
relevant.
Yeah, you don't really matter. And so that, and again, that's not a definite for me. That's just a possibility.
Yeah.
And because I don't have a whole lot of proof or evidence in the fact that something different is going to happen. Like, America just doesn't seem to be in the picture. And that would be a perfect way for us not to be in the picture, right? Not brokering peace deals, our currency meaning nothing to the rest of the world, right? And us sitting over here fighting with each other over stupid stuff that is just.
Yep, we like to do that, don't we? We like to fight over. We like to get really mixed up in things that I just don't know why it's worth arguing about. Those certain things.
Listen, it's not.
Give me some things that are what we're doing in the United States that are somehow leading a conversation there, but yet why does it's so insignificant to things that we should be focused on, or things that we can agree on and solve, but instead we're talking about something that we disagree on that really doesn't have an impact.
Well, go back real quick to what you had to say about climate change. By the way, I'm gonna interview an officer at some point when I get a hold of him. I think he's out to sea, who's a climatologist.
Nice.
And he's a buddy. Okay. He was my first. Yeah, he was my first division officer, and I love the dude to death as a chief. My first division officer as a chief. Okay. And he is a cool cat, and he actually went through a conversion of due to Lawversations. I can take some credit, but he went through his own conversion process of basically being like, what, so he went from being, and again, I can't help it. I'm going to offend people. It's going to happen. But he went from being hardcore left, like global climate, anybody that doesn't agree on this viewpoint is an idiot, to being like, oh my gosh, you guys are idiots. I know that these people can probably be idiots too. I need to come somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Big change in his viewpoints. Now, far as the climate part, I'm not entirely sure on. But one of the things that me and him used to talk about all the time when I would poke at him because he was a climatologist, right? Yeah. Was or he had a degree in climate studies. I basically was like, I would always be like, listen, man, and it was very much to your point earlier. Problematic or not, I think it's just a great distraction.
It's a distraction.
I don't mean that in any. Go ahead. You're fine. I don't mean that in a sense of a distraction, like some big nefarious, conspiracy theory, distraction. I mean, it's like a lot of things, especially with liberalism, right? It's saber rattling. It's a way to turn your nose up to other people. It's what do they call it? More
moral high ground or
more high ground,
signaling, right?
Virtue signaling, yeah, that's the thing. And while we're virtue signaling over stuff that's not very as matter of fact as they demand it has to be, so that they're right.
Yeah,
really bad things are happening at local levels. You know what I'm saying? Like we want to turn everybody's car into electric cars, but the real problem has always been and has been the concentration of people in one area like Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? And I've always said this. I said that concentration of smog and pollution is destroying, ecosystems that are beautiful and wonderful up in Alaska. Yeah. Like the fishing and the problems with the pollution in the ocean, right? Like people talk about it and they show it in a way of oh, this is bad, right? But then they go on to talking about things that are not going to fix that. It really is a bigger picture of circle of influence versus circle of concern. You know what I'm saying? Like what can we do now to make smaller changes that actually affect the immediate environment around you, right?
There was actually a UN panel. There was a UN panel a couple years back that looked at it, tried to take an unbiased look, at how do you impact the environment I'm kind of stealing a soundbite from Jordan Peterson, who was on the panel. I don't know if you are familiar with Jordan Peterson or not.
Paul,
you love Jordan
Peterson. Is the man. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna get in trouble for that.
He's a hard one to argue with.
Yeah.
Anyways, I can't. I'll spend all day on a Jordan Peterson rant if I get going. So I'll just.
Me too.
I'll just take a step back. But anyways, they took a look at how do you impact the environment positively? What are some of the things that you can do? And the solution they came to, and I'll justify or use his justification for it, was basically make energy either free or as close to free, as cheap as you can, because you have if you look at how much pollution is created, the majority of the pollution is created from like third world countries where you've got people, their number one concern is, where's my next meal, right? So they don't have a long outlook on the current environmental situation. They're worried about a next meal. And if you can bring free or cheap energy to those people and you improve their quality of life, you start a grassroots, ground up movement around starting to care about the environment. And there's an environmental impact to the conversation around how they came to that conclusion. There's also like a psychological evaluation that had to take place to come to that conclusion. And it's like, whether or not you agree with that, I think the concept of it is still extremely valid, because what we have is we have this conversation around climate change, and you have one side that says we need to ban every single gas car. Everybody needs to drive an electric. We need to have only green energy, but not include, but not nuclear. We need to have, just wind, solar, hydro, which can be great energy sources. The technology is not inherently evil, and I personally don't even necessarily have a problem with it in the right area, in the right context. But instead you have, and then the flip side of that is you have all of these folks that are like, it's almost their response to the left saying we need to worry about climate change. The response is, I need to go farther right to balance their leftism. Have you seen, like, as I kind of gravitate more to be somewhat moderate, at least on topics. I mean, in some topics I'm very concerned, but on this one, I kind of fall in the middle, and it's like, you dumping used antifreeze out in your lawn or out in the woods does not actually counteract somebody putting a solar panel on their house. And so how do we work together, have conversations that are constructive, and do things that are just no brainers? And I want to go back to like the farming thing.
I wanted to a while back ago, but we got lost.
And I want to bring this back from an emission standpoint. Have you looked at the research around, one, how many harvests do we have left with our current topsoil in the United States of America? So the University of actually Mississippi with the Savory Institute did this study, and I won't claim to say that I agree that this number is valid, but it's at least what their study came up with and what they published is 60 years. We have 60 years of topsoil left before our current commercial agricultural practices aren't valid anymore, or aren't able to sustain with the amount of fertilizer we have to put on to get a product. We're not going to be profitable or be able to, create this product anymore unless we drastically change things. And then if the other side of that is how much of the emissions that we're creating are just coming from agricultural tillage. So as you look at topsoil, so one of the big indicators for topsoil that we look at specifically on my farm is organic content, and how much carbon does it take to create a 1% change in organic content, and how has that organic content changed over the last 70 years, basically since we've been farming the way that we've been farming as a nation. And so as that organic content is changing, that is literally turning into emissions and a destruction of topsoil. So it's like, I think I only did the math because we feed a lot of round bales hay in the wintertime, right? And so I wanted to try to figure out on a per acre basis, feeding out this carbon source that the cows consume and then put back onto the soil, what could I potentially expect from an organic content change or improvement over a year or a couple of years? And it's like I think we're going to feed, or we're in the process of feeding around 100,000 pounds, so 100,000-pound round bales this year. And we would expect on the 3-acre winter pasture that they're on, organic content to go up by 3%, right? So we're at, when we started farming, we had organic content in our soil at 0.9. You would, if you go back and look at what was organic content, east of the Mississippi in 1850, at least 8%. I mean, it was just years of herbivores grazing and doing almost like a natural rotational grazing program, because you've got grazers, you've got predators, they're constantly moving, they're constantly pruning the grasses. Basically, we're replicating nature in what we're doing here. And so we've gone from, at least in my area, because I was at 0.9% when we started farming. If we were at 8 or 8+, how many tons of carbon have we taken from below ground and released into the atmosphere just based on our farming practices? And then here's the thing that gets me, the worst part about it. Look at so the government wants to take and ban everybody's electric cars. They want to do all this stuff, but then look at what they do with agriculture and they do with crop share insurance, which crop share insurance is basically, it's not really insurance. They call it that because they don't want to call it a subsidy, but it's a subsidy. So we're trying to save the environment with solar panels and battery electric cars, but at the same time, we spend $20 billion every year on the commercial agricultural system that is tillage, glyphosate, and synthetic fertilizers that are all destroying the topsoil, and they're all releasing organic content, carbon emissions from the soil where it should be into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
What a problem to solve that doesn't increase anybody's power bill. It doesn't, it has all these positive impacts. And the only negative impact is someone has to farm smarter and farm in a way that's better for the environment. And you know what? Everybody just thinks farmers go ahead, Law. Your fingers.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
I don't even think I'm going to take that interruption out. I'm going to let it stand.
What do you got there? Let's see it. I love it. Dude, I love it. The Market Gardener. I've not read that personally, but I love it.
Yeah, he's from Canada. I'm going to try to do some affiliate marketing with him. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much, I don't know if he's got that big of an expansion, but all of the things, like everything you just got through talking about, is a focus of his whole life and basically his income. And he makes 6 figures off of 2 acres, barely 2 acres of land.
Yeah.
And feeds entire communities by doing it, and then gives extra to restaurants and stuff. And he does it all smart. He does very minimal tillage, very minimal. He uses a particular small tractor, and purposely, intentionally, everything is designed to where he doesn't go do the commercial stuff, right?
And I guarantee he's got an excellent compost program.
Oh yeah. So he buys compost, from people.
Yeah,
if he has to, and he makes his own. And listen, that I wish now more than, man, I'm so disappointed in myself. I wish I would have done what I felt like I needed to do and take you around and show you. We just made a new compost pile yesterday from grass and leaves together, and I've got a total right now big compost piles. Probably got 6 of them. I'm probably going to have to buy from a local garden place here. I pretty much have kind of decided that at least we're going to do 2 plots right now. I might make a 3rd one before fall comes, but we got 2 plots, and basically I'm doing all the things like you talked about for a while, but on a small scale.
Yeah.
I definitely, my amendment process has got to be heavy, but it's all going to be organic. And the stuff that I'm going to get from this local farm supply place here, garden place, get a couple of yards of their magic dirt, right, which is all organic.
Yep.
And I'm going to start with that, and then hopefully cycle in enough of our own process as time goes. Have you heard the chirping in the background? Can you hear the chirping in the background?
It sounds like chickens, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So that's our second year of we bought some chicks this year again from the same local hardware store, by the way, which I love. I love supporting their business, even though it's a little bit more expensive. Man, I'll try to stop there and buy little things here and there.
Are those layers or broilers?
They're layers. My son and me, my youngest boy, he soon to be 15.
That's awesome.
He and me are working on this together. I'm trying to convince him to stick with it, that I will put money. He can put money in his pocket as long as we just keep following this process. But we're literally right now, if you look, I have but this group I'm definitely going to do some affiliate marketing with. But hey, Johnny's, I'm advertising for you. Johnny Selected Seeds. They're, I got certified right here. This is certified organic Encore lettuce mix, right? So it's a bunch of, lettuce mixes. And I got, this is 1/4 pound of seeds. This is going to be our money maker right here. It's going to be a big one. I have some awesome specialty carrots, right? They're you could say quote unquote genetically modified. I don't do genetically modified. The reason why these would be genetically modified is, of course, they have basically cross-pollinated plants to come up with this type of so it's not technically like they did something in a lab, right? But it's definitely
typically when people use the term GMO, they're talking about glyphosate resistant.
That's right.
And there's so many. It's wild. It used to just be corn and beans, right? Now they have Roundup Ready alfalfa. They have everything. There's probably like 10 different species of row crop that are now glyphosate resistant. And I always get a kick out of I tend to be like the ask a farmer at work. Like if anybody's got a farmer question, I'm like, all right, I don't know all the answers, but you might get my opinion, you might get the fact, and I don't know which it is. So, I always tell people it's not the GMO, it's not the fact that it's genetically modified that's bad or inherently evil. And I don't even think it's inherently evil, but even bad. It's the fact that now you can spray the soil with glyphosate or other harmful chemicals, but mostly the big one's glyphosate. That's the problem. So it's not that it's modified. I don't think there's any tie that is somehow going to be worse for you. I mean, someone I'm sure has claimed that, but glyphosate is definitively bad for soil biology. There's no argument on that.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. All of everything in this book is, anti. Everything needs to be natural, right? Yeah. All natural. And what I was talking about with the chickens is I'm making chicken poop everything. Chicken manure, it's like right now these guys pine shavings is filling up a box outside, and I'm like, this isn't just potential compost one day. This is like the absolute best mulch. You know what I'm saying? Like mulch that fertilizes. Right, that I'm definitely probably going to put around my tomato plants for sure. I do have to put out some lime. My pH is actually, I got the Mississippi State University Extension soil sample.
Nice.
I definitely know I got to put out some lime. And of course, I went and just straight my soil right off the bat. It's nitrogen deficient, right? Because I don't have a whole lot of organic material, right? But I'm going to, and I'm building it up. And then we got 240 of these that this weekend. We're going to turn my upstairs. We got a big old beautiful house, man. We're going to turn my upstairs into a small, because there's, a bunch of south facing windows that that low to the ground, that light can just come in most of the day. And I'm going to put a bunch of tables up there, keeping the house a little warm, saving someone some money. And
you guys are running AC down there right now?
Getting germination. But it's just this past week, it got consistently up to 80 enough to where Now the house is actually 74 degrees. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's wild. I just turned my wood boiler off like a week ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if
it was, don't get me wrong.
With that.
It's about to get cold.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So you're still doing the wood boiler thing, huh?
Yeah. So I don't I'm sure some of the folks listening may not know what this is. So we have it sits outside the house. It's basically a large stove that's surrounded by a water jacket. It's probably 300-400 gallons. And it's got an auto-regulated damper on the front. So we've got there's a wood, 15 by 30 wood shed that we fill up. We burn about one bay, a third of that every year. And it pumps hot water in the house. So it's heating going through the HVAC system to heat the air. And then it also goes through and heats the hot water. So we heat both our hot water and our house off of wood.
That's so cool.
The original green energy, I like to tell people.
Yeah.
So, dude, that's I love hearing about composting. It's almost like you should. I say this jokingly, but you should have to learn how to compost before you're allowed to garden. You would be such a better gardener. Like that's the meat and potatoes.
And we're learning
everything. Yeah,
we're learning the hard way. My stuff is breaking down, and we tried to do the fast methods and the heat methods and stuff, and it's breaking down, but it's not going as fast as like some people on YouTube, fast go. And dude, we're getting to the point now where I'm about to start, like anytime we're outside, I'm like, you're not going to pee inside the house. You're going to pee in the nitrogen bucket.
I love it. That's awesome. We one of our goals this year was to compost better. We've been composting, but so one of our big sources for like nitrogen is we do all of our, I shouldn't say all, because we do some USDA slaughtered, which means you can sell retail cuts, whether it's pork or beef. But we also, the majority of our farm sales are wholesale. So you're buying quarter or half a whole beef or a hog. And all of that slaughter happens on farm. And so, if we slaughter 10 hogs in a day, that we have a local forestry guy that chips, yards and yards of truckloads of chips. And we get a portion of those. He'll come drop them off because he's local to us. And then we're, hog guts, hides, heads, hoofs, whatever, are all going in that mulch pack, getting covered with more mulch. And it's just built. And the plan is to double compost that, so that after all of that breaks down, it'll get composted a second time into another year worth of harvest. And then the end goal being, some of that will end up in the garden, but a lot of that, into a manure spreader and then onto the fields to replace what you would have to buy synthetic fertilizer to do. I don't know. It's not. I hesitate to use the term organic. It's all natural, but I'm not. I didn't get into farming so that the government could certify me for another thing. We're not. The term organic is owned by the U.S. government. I mean, if you use that term and say that your product is, whether it is or isn't in your own mind, if they don't certify it to be organic, it's not organic, and they're the ones going after you. So I always get that question from folks that buy from it. Are you guys organic? No, not because we're not all natural or meet probably 99% of the organic guidelines, but because I didn't do this so the government could, keep tabs on what Nate McMakin is doing. I moved out in the middle of nowhere and living off the land so that I, could ask less permission to live freely, in this country. So, it's
there you go.
So you got layers. You're doing your garden. What's the stretch goal? Or do you have a stretch goal that you're thinking of bringing something on?
Yeah. So you mean in concerns with the farm?
Yeah. Like, is there another livestock enterprise?
So well, there is. I am right now, man. I'm so busy. I don't even know what I'm doing. So first of all, I don't know if you saw, but I just got through 2 years of being basically a founding member pastor of a church congregation. Now that has not so pleasantly ended.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into the details just for a number of reasons. But nothing like to the general public that would have been horrible, right? It's just disagreement and how to manage and how to be leaders, really is what it boiled down to.
Okay.
So anyways, but I did that. I enjoyed it a lot. And it sort of forced me into a lot of things. Like I said, this past year has been nuts. So it forced me into a lot of things to like soul search, get right, get straight, regardless of how upset I am with some of the people, they loved me through some of the toughest times recently, and didn't judge me in that way. So it wasn't because of going to rehab or, because I admitted I had a drinking problem or anything like that. But, so I was still pastor to them, and that was cool. So just because I left that group doesn't mean that like, I still don't recognize and feel led, right? Called to ministry, right? Of a biblical, godly nature. Now that's part of what I'm doing here with these channels, right? But with this channel, reaching out to folks, right? In the way that, maybe somebody can handle it. I'm not, as well as I do, and it's already been stated in some of the other episodes, I'll Lawversate with anyone. Just be cool with where I come from, and I can maybe not agree with where you come from. I don't necessarily like it, right? And I want you to change, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna force you. I know I can't force you to, and all I can do is just be your friend and love you, and that's where I'm at, and that's what I want to do. So I'm gonna probably end up doing something to that extent. I don't know how, besides just this channel and a book and anything else. I publicly, I've got real after a rough patch. I got quickly involved with the local church here, and I'm getting quickly involved in local stuff. Right, a pastor brought me on and immediately was like, "You have something to offer, Pastor Justin." And he introduced me to other people. And so where that goes, I'm not entirely sure, but it's gonna be social in a big way. And when I say social, I mean like there's an after school program I'm going to be involved in. We're doing a tent prayer thing 24/7 at the end of this month. I'm going to end up, I wouldn't be surprised if I end up meeting the mayor. I mean, I've already met him or seen him, right, and talked to him in person at a pastor's breakfast. But there's no telling where the influence in that area of life will go. How much that's going to pay the bills. Where am I going to get a paycheck from that? I don't know. Like I said already, affiliate marketing and all the stuff into this channel, and maybe monetizing later on and things like that. I would love to be able to do ministry full time and get paid for it. And just be able to pay for the things we just.
You're not trying to get rich. You just want to. It's how do you live your life in a way that you're not. You don't wake up at the end of it and go, why did I spend so much time doing this when this is what I really wanted to do? I mean, I'm with you. I asked that question to myself, like I could see someday full-time farming. Well, I would say today I'm full-time farming. I just also have a day job. But how do I, maybe I go part-time or I do engineering consulting. Or I just take one aspect of what I do now,
slowly,
and
fade one thing out while bringing one thing in. And for my stretch goal, I'm with you. That's the same thing I'm trying to do.
I love it.
At first, I'm trying to build it as a family thing specifically for my son, so he can. He's always, he's been wanting to be business oriented, and some of the other people in the family may also come alongside. And basically provision for us all, and to where that's our job and our life is this market garden, and using this property that I live on for now, and who knows where that's going to go. But for us as a stretch goal is concerned, it's a fade this in so that I can slowly let go of this other thing.
I love it.
Yeah, that's the plan. So it's the ministry piece, it's this piece. And then I don't know if I mentioned this on any of my other videos yet, which is kind of funny because I'm so proud of it. Even though I'm like 2 weeks behind in one class, I am going to college right now for psychology.
You did mention on your first video.
Did I mention the first? Yeah.
You must have mentioned it.
With psychology with a clinical emphasis, and I'm going to continue through with the GI Bill, get a master's degree, and become a licensed Mississippi counselor. I see that happening in the next 3 to 4 years. So where that goes and what I end up doing with that, who knows? And it could be a big part of the whole fade out. Sorry, nuclear power, I love you, but I got to go. I need to be more focused on what I'm a part of, what I'm really truly called to do, a big part of it, and focus most of my time and energy on that, and give my life for other people's life. And so in doing that, it's going to be garden, it's going to be community work, it's going to be getting a paycheck to be a licensed counselor. Yeah. Or even working for the government to help people who don't have money and let the government try to, pay me. I don't care. I don't care how it goes. If I can peaceably, with all of my quirks and my beliefs and everything else, help somebody or help people out. And I'm paying it forward, man, because man, I have had such great help. I want to shout out to a lady, Miss Eliana Lawson. She's the local Hines Behavioral Health here, and we live in Jackson, Mississippi. She's actually now the supervisor over Hines Behavioral Health. I forget which district it is, but it's a Hines community, and it's right on the edge of Jackson city limits. And anyways, man, I did an IOP program with her that I didn't even think I needed. I was like, I'm just doing this because everybody said I need to do it. And IOP is intensive outpatient. Okay. Man, I'm so glad I did it. This woman is awesome. I look to her as like, man, I want to be. As a matter of fact, the reason why I got in trouble with the church is because I kind of pulled a Miss Lawson, and told people what was up when, in a not so nice way. Yeah. When they really needed it, man, they needed it. and so anyways, so she's been great, and I'm going to honorably mention her here. I'm definitely going to try to interview her, but she's so busy right now. But she's doing God's work, man. And I'm telling you, when I went through this program, and I even went and visited the other day, too, the people that come off the streets, that even if you're able to help one of those folks see life and do better for themselves and battle their addictions and whatever they got going on, praise God. That's the best way to put it. You know what I'm saying? And she did that. And so people like her, and like one of the first counselors I ever had when I was in the Navy, man, over the years, besides the fact that like I have a natural bent to speak to people and love on people, I was like, maybe I should be doing this professionally. So there's another, stretch goal or what I'm working towards.
Well, and maybe you find a way to tie those things together, right? So, I feel like this isn't everybody, but one of the things that certainly as a culture, but people that are struggling specifically is just hopelessness.
Oh yeah, man.
And sometimes the cure to hopelessness isn't as much as you think. It's getting up and doing something that they think matters or does matter. I mean, I guess your perception in some ways is your own reality, right? So, if it's, hey, you're in this program, can you guys send your program folks out for a day? We can pull weeds, we can mix compost, we can, wash veggies, and then we can donate that to, a local, or back to the program, or a local food pantry or something like that. It's like, there's something about sweating a little bit, having the sun in your face, getting your hands dirty, that fixes your head. There's a tie between those activities and what happens in your brain. And, maybe you find a way to tie those types of things together. I mean, that would be like, that's right up your alley. I think, you probably already had this idea, I'm sure, but, it just seems like it would be a good fit for it, for the situation.
Yep. And I'm just, personally, I'm counting on God. I'm like, yo, you, sir, have to push me and all of my insecurities that have developed over some years, and just continue to prove to me that that's what you want me to do. And and be vulnerable. I had a buddy. It's so funny. Oh man, this is gonna be an interesting share. I wonder how people are gonna take this. So, and I'm gonna leave it in the video. I'm definitely gonna leave it in the video. So he's a friend who I'm gonna interview for sure, and he's a prophetic guy. Like he's gifted, spiritually gifted. I've recognized it for years, and he's probably my most serious like spiritual brother by far.
Nice.
And I mean, my girls used to spend the night at his house, and he would just randomly be like talking to them. They'd be playing and hanging out, and he would be like, how much I love your dad. Like that's how much, and it would just, the girls would be like, Mr. Frank, why do you love my dad? Like they didn't, they were like, yeah, okay, yeah, you love him. And so anyways, this dude, he's a cool cat, and he's got a lot of quirks. And when we do the interview, I'm going to let you know. I'll be like, hey, remember that guy we talked about?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm watching all of them, so.
Yeah, good. All right. So anyways, I was struggling, man. I was having a hard time the other day, and it wasn't, I've been pretty good with everything and, keeping my emotions in balance, but I was just sort of like, oh my goodness, this is killing me. And, something was getting worse that should have been getting better. And I was just like, and so I thought about Frank just randomly. I ain't talked to him in months, but I don't even know the last time we did chat. It had almost maybe been a year. And I was like, I just texted him randomly. I'm like, listen, man, I need a word from God right now. And he goes, wait, you want me to go in this cold? I was like, yep. Yep, I'm not telling you nothing. Cold. He's like, I got it. Don't worry. And then literally a couple of minutes later, man, he sends me this text that like what he had to say and the way he said it, like not even knowing anything going on in my life. Like he like, so here I am, I'm in the programs and I'm going to AA and I'm doing all this stuff. And I've been somewhat freshly out of out of a meeting. And he was basically in his own way, and only way Frank can do it, quoted sort of came up with a version of the idea of the serenity prayer in the first part. And I was like, bro, really right now? Like, and he wasn't doing it, like he's not the kind of guy to just have cliches, you know what I'm saying? And then he said a bunch of other things, man. And part of it was that we're like, oh my gosh, like how, this fits like so crazy. And one of the things he said was, it was time. He said it 3 times, and I'm taking that as something significant, to fight. And he basically said, you have to be vulnerable. And I was like, well, all right. So I'm doing a lot of things right now where I'm like, hey, I'm vulnerable.
Well, you've got the right approach, which is you just kind of set things up. And when God says, okay, that it's time to move forward, you move forward. And if it's not time, you sit there and you wait, because it's not your plan. I liked what you said about Frank, and you use the term prophetic, which I think people miss the concept of that sometimes, because you think prophetic and you think prophet and you think prophecy and you think, oh, I'm going to predict, something that's going to happen in your life. But actually, if you go back and look at 90% of the prophecies from the Old Testament, it's comments on current situations, encouragement. It's recognizing when somebody's doing something wrong and being loving them, but calling them out and saying, I love you and you're doing this and we need to fix it. It's not this like, predict the future. I mean, that is part of it, but it's not most of it,
That's
and
right.
it sounds exactly what Frank is spot on with.
Encouragement
into Justin's life.
That's right.
And you know what? I think it's easy to lose track of how important that is today. I know I've missed that too many times, whether it's with my coworkers, whether it's with my kids, whether it's with my wife. It's like, why am I, normally it's trying to solve the problem. I get real accused of that all the time, and not either helping someone else solve, or being encouraging so somebody else can solve their problem, or just being encouraging in general, and I think that's key, and something that, man, I wish I could, I need to find a way. How do I work on that better?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you. I latched on to the term that you used and thought that, we need more of that.
Yeah, I agree. It's good. All right, look, man.
Go ahead.
Where you at? You got to go get some work done.
I mean, it's Friday,
Listen, I can't do that. I can't. I told you I was 2 weeks behind in the class already.
All right. No, if you got to run, man. This has been. I
don't know. It's hard. To be honest with you, it's hard to let go because this has been awesome.
Well, I'm sure you have a long list of folks you want to talk to and catch up with, and
yeah, I'm gonna have to be careful though. I got to be careful because I can, got to balance things. Got to balance things, and not overdo one thing for for forsaking another. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But is there anything like last kind of round, anything specific you want to ask or talk about or say? Man, we've done a really good job.
Have we? I think we covered. The only thing that I have on my list that we didn't really talk to, we talked about engineering a little bit. We talked about how the civilian nuclear community kind of is.
Yeah.
But, have you heard much from other folks? Like, you've got a non-Navy nukes in your life. I don't even have, like, in my role, it's abnormal to even have been in the military, let alone a Navy nuke. They don't even, like, they have no idea what a guy in the military does. I could tell them I was a full bird captain, or I was a third class, and they would think that those are the same thing. They're so clueless on anything about military life. But have you got feedback from other folks on the transition from military to civilian life, and perceptions that are out there, and how to handle that?
So I'm sure you caught a little bit of that in my first video with Rob.
That was good,
man. I didn't expect or suspect it was going to be so hard.
Certainly,
yeah. And what was so hard? It was not just hard for me; it was hard for the wife too. And it wasn't because I'm now home, type deal. It was more like, hey, where's that hardcore family friendship that you easily develop?
Yeah.
Where's that camaraderie that like is just natural? Right. It went away like that. And even old military folks, right? They've been in the civilian world long enough that they had already adapted. And so I'm sitting here feeling like I'm on an island, all by myself. Even with ex-military people around me, it just wasn't
the transition. They've done it.
Yeah. You got to imagine, man, too, think about it like this. I was also, part of the Chiefs quarters. And let me tell you, like the fraternity's for real. Like you form a brotherhood. And I mean, even people you don't like, you still look at fondly, and that hurt. It was weird. It's hard to explain. I have a new definition too. I wouldn't say new. It fits the psychological definition of PTSD. Like, bro, I have work nightmares and dreams lately, especially since I quit drinking. Like, you wouldn't believe, man. Like every other time I dream big, I'm dreaming about me going to work in the wrong uniform, me being, like crazy stuff, institutional type things. I haven't, on some of those personal specifics, other than, chats like this, I haven't, the feedback I get a lot of times is, I miss it. The funny thing is, if you don't really talk to people, especially like Rob and Lionel, right, who like me, and no offense to you, you did some seriously awesome time, but there was a point where you were like, I'm out, bro, right? But people who like invested themselves into it and retired and maybe didn't even really want to get out, right? They were truly institutionalized.
Yeah.
dude, it's like getting out of prison. You know, like it's like that Shawshank Redemption moment
Right.
where it's like, you know, there's that raft where such and such, you know, inscribed his name in, and you're looking up at it being like, not knowing that was him, but you're thinking about putting a rope up there too. You know what I'm saying? Like, like I get the, you know, the institutionalization and how the transition causes people to be suicidal and to lose a little bit of their grip, man. And I get all that, and I see all that. You know, I will say that I learned a lot from the process, and I think what's going to happen, and it's a good thing you brought this up, is that in these videos, I'm going to get into those conversations a lot more.
We should. And yeah, no, I mean,
it's going to be a topic, I'm pretty sure.
I certainly didn't do 20 years, right, like you did, or I'm not sure if it was exactly 20, but I know you were
20 in a month.
Okay, so I was 8.5, but I mean, I was
still a long time.
In, you know, like when I was in the Navy, you know, went to the first boat, did the NR1, you know, the Navy was still like a fun, you know, it wasn't as serious as when we got to when I got to the Mississippi, it was like, all right, this is game on. I was like real, you know, I was hoo-yah, right? to use a Navy term, right? I was real hoo-yah. And you get out and it's like, where's your purpose? You know, if you're working with people, you're like, why aren't we like dogging each other and then like yelling at each other? And then why aren't we talking about where we're going to go get drinks tonight? Like,
that's right.
You're just going to go home.
We're not hanging out.
You're not going to hang out together this weekend.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Are we not gonna live life together?
Yeah, I'm like, why? I feel like you're just so disconnected. Yeah. I mean, that is I like your example of it, you know, like getting out of prison. You're just like, you feel like even though you know people in your area, like I moved back to West Michigan, so I knew, you know, Jade's family is around here, but it was just like, you felt like you didn't know anybody because you weren't engaged in anybody's life like you are when you're in the military. And man, that's a hard transition. You know, I keep very good contact with all the guys that were in my division when I was on the Mississippi, especially towards the end, like all the guys that were junior to me. And I even like Sammy Gaston, he'll be here. He's coming up this summer, you know, like I get contact with a lot of those guys too, but like the kind of the group that came after the original Manning, I mean, we text multiple times a week, you know, group chat that's been going on for 6 years. The couple years after, I think it was 2016, maybe, we did like a week out here on the property shooting guns and just hanging out. You know, there was like 10 of us. I don't remember how many. It was a big group, and it's like I you know, that connection's still there, and it's super helpful. But one of the pieces of advice that those guys that transition out is like, don't take your first job real serious because they are going to think you're crazy. And you're gonna have to learn how to be a civilian, and like your first job after the Navy, you probably don't want to work with those people a year later because you'll realize how crazy you were, you know. And you wrote
the book, brother. You wrote the book.
And one last thing I'll mention, and I love your thoughts on this too because of your conversation with some of the guys that have always been civilian at the plant you're at now, is like, I've had conversations with some of my closer engineering colleagues, you know, and their perception of the military is so skewed from reality, like to the point where I've even like, they knew I was in the military and they still said this to me because they were just being open and honest. They weren't trying to be negative. They're like, isn't the military just for like guys that, you know, aren't smart enough to go to college or can't get into college? And I was like, yeah. So now I always say, you know, if they can't solve a problem and they're asking me, it's like, well, I don't know. I was just a dumb Navy guy. So what do I know? And they're like, you know, kind of to always drive that point home is like,
as you should,
you know, but people, if you're in the military and you're transitioning out, you need to know that's what they think. They think you were too dumb to go to college, especially if you're in a high, you know, technical job. Go in there assuming they think you don't know what you're doing because you do have something to prove and you do have a monkey on your back that you don't realize. And they don't really take the time that you put in and when you served, they don't take that serious. And it's really unfortunate. You and I are not going to change perceptions overnight. But I was naive to that. I didn't realize. I was like, don't you know that I was an engineering watch supervisor and I qualified engineering watch supervisor for 6 years and I was the lead petty officer.
And listen, let me tell you, probably the number one painful thing in that situation was turncoats. I worked directly for one, and I don't mind even saying it, even if he ends up watching this video. I worked directly for one.
Yeah.
Who, instead of basically being there to help or to like understand what you're going through or anything else, he was just like, I worked for two actually. One of them was a retiree chief type. The other one, I won't talk about his naval career because it's quite hilarious. Anyways,
yeah.
But both of them, man, I realized real quick, man, they had no like. I mean, and we get this regardless of everything positive we're saying about the Navy. We also recognize that, dude, there's just people that are in it for themselves all the time.
Oh, yeah.
In life. Oh, yeah. And if you happen to come across a couple of those all at once, right, they're like, oh, yeah, he is weird. Look at that weird guy coming out of the Navy. Yeah, and they don't have they know what they'll do. And this is what all humans do, right, is like, I'm like, yo, I was qualified engineer officer watch. I did 2 prototype tours. Like I get the training thing. Like, come on, let's figure out a way to fast track me into being able to stand in front of these people and do what you already say I got to do. Remember what I described earlier. Right. Like there was no expectation that I'm truly an expert, no matter how much they said I'm supposed to act like one. And so, and I would be like, I've got this ability. And basically what they do is the way they justify it. It's just like we do in the Navy sometimes, and you probably did this at times, where they do take that one guy who has proven for whatever reason that he's an idiot or that he sucks or he's too busy to try to work hard or whatever, and they apply their experience with that one guy who got out of the Navy who sucked to everybody who gets out of the Navy, right? And especially if you give them a reason, like, man, I failed some of my systems exams to begin with, and my bosses, all that they saw me as was, here's a guy that didn't pass an exam, and I, dude, I can't begin to tell you how many people since that point have been like, especially in the early days after I got qualified and started doing stuff, who were like, oh, you're not a complete idiot. I'm like, who told you I was a complete idiot?
Right.
Oh, Mark. And I'm like, really? And it's like, it's almost like, you don't even have to step on my back. You're already, higher up management. Why would you do that? And that's the way they were. That's the way they were. And I had to build a reputation from negative with people who normally wouldn't have judged me for test failures or judged me for those things, but they judged me because these turncoats were like, oh yeah, I don't know if he's gonna make it. He sucks. And just kind of like leaving me out to dry, like treating me just like, it was terrible, man. And the amount of communication and connection that should have been there was non-existent. And then the worst part about it is, this is the worst part. Oh my gosh, this kills me. Then when life got hard and difficult for me and I started struggling and I started having problems, instead of like using my Navy time as a positive, like in the past, when it got to the point to where I became problematic, it became, well, I mean, could you have skipped out on work when you were in the Navy? I'm like, bruh, like
these are big issues, right?
Weren't you a chief? Didn't you have to, I'm like, you say that one more time, I swear I'm gonna slit your throat. Right. I actually, to be honest with you, I should be careful because I actually did have an incident where what caused me to finally lose control because of a series of a number of things coming in, like you've seen me lose control before, right? But I'm telling you, man, this was totally different. I had a like mental meltdown, and the reason was because for like the third time, one of my supervisors who was never in the Navy was using ideas and concepts that he got from this other guy who should have been way more cool and way more understanding, basically saying, what would have happened if you would have done this in the Navy? And I was like,
from a guy that's not even served.
Yeah, like how do you Yeah, and what he was accusing me of, and what the accusational piece in part wasn't even like accurate. It wasn't like I was just skipping out on work. Like it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and if you compared me to what other people were doing on a daily basis, and when they were missing work for their medical or personal issues, it actually either balanced completely out or I was still ahead of them. Right. You know what I'm saying? I was still doing more and being involved more and giving more of myself than they were. And it was nuts to even like act like I wasn't doing something, you know what I'm saying? Or like I was some problem child. And lots of, you know, I hope there was some people who recognized that and realized that. I feel like there seems to be a lot of folks who are like, yeah, Justin, you're back. You know, you're in the saddle again, you know, that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, man, them turncoats, so they make life hard.
For folks that are already in like a role where they have an impact on people, a lot of those folks are set in their ways, right? If they're great, they're going to continue being great. If they suck, they're going to continue sucking, right? But how do you know? So we both had transitions, right? It sounds mine seems significantly less drastic, although I could, you know, I felt it. You know, West Michigan culture is kind of like, well, it's like Midwest culture. You never actually address the issue. You just kind of acknowledge it. You don't even disagree, and then you go do something else. It's very non-Navy, which took me a long time to get used to. But nonetheless, I mean, what kind of advice do you give the next sailor that's getting out of the nuclear Navy, that's going to a technical job? One is acknowledge it. Acknowledge that people are going to.
You're going to be different.
You're going to be different. And they have already made assumptions about you, about how you're less than the average college grad because you were in the Navy or because you were even in the military, probably applies. Yeah. What kind of advice do you give those folks?
Yeah. If you find yourself, I'd go so far as to say that's not a guarantee, but you can go some places where they're like, yo, you were in the Navy, you did that. You know what I'm saying? That could happen. Right. But I would say that probably the majority of the time it's what you're talking about. And my advice would be whatever you do, don't do like what you just talked about, because that's what I did.
Yeah.
Right. I tried to drown it with drinking. I tried to cover it up. I had very little or minimal conversations with people. I went to counseling one time even before getting out of the Navy, I had been through months straight of counseling. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, from every type, secular, religious, you name it, man. I was filling my head with the right kind of stuff. And then in this process of pain and transition and the bad image, like you said, that you have already, this, what do you call it? I'm looking for an S word. Anyways, your viewpoint, the viewpoint that people have on you, you cannot don't just try to fight it on your own. Get some help.
Yeah.
Get some help. I think you said the best thing. If there's anything this video is going to do for somebody like that that's watching it and hearing us talk, I hope it is informing them that there's a chance that you can get out and be treated, even if it's not like terrible, but just be seen as, like you said, second rate, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in some, if not a lot of those cases, it's probably totally the opposite, right? You should be leading them fools, not being looked down on by them. And in that case, man, just realize it's going to happen. That's key. That's a Jordan Peterson thing. I was going to make fun of you earlier, by the way, because of what you were talking about. I was going to be like, yeah, you're right. Somebody listens to Jordan Peterson, but something else you said back ago.
I can't watch him and find anything to be like, you got it, man. Anyways,
I have only watched the first episode of, by the way, of their Exodus thing that they did on Daily Wire. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet. No,
bro.
I have hit the start of farming season, and so
time. Yep, I'm a month behind, bro, and I'm with you. Totally get it.
It's work a job,
totally get it.
Take care of kids.
Yeah.
Farm when the sun goes down. Yeah. The only difference is Saturday you get to farm during the daylight. That's the only benefit of the weekend. So Let me just
go
ahead. So go ahead.
Yeah, so you're fine. I'm ready, man. But so know it's coming. That's like knowing life is suffering, right? Knowing that things suck, right? And here's a place where it might suck for sure. And then don't act like it's not happening, and don't act, and especially if it's real bad or it's like affecting you, or you start feeling like you're like if that D word comes around and you start feeling depressed, man, do not listen. Here's the deal. I'm gonna share it with you real fast. I got so bad, and it was not all anybody. To be honest with you, what got me to the worst part was my own fault. It was me not getting help. It was me complicating the situations by behaving irresponsibly and terribly in life. Right? It was me. I'm taking responsibility for this. It got so bad for me that I looked at my wife after battling what I realized was something I didn't even thought was like a real thing, and that was like physical symptoms of depression, like seemingly feeling uncontrollable, like to the point to where your brain chemistry is so messed up that you can't just push past it. You know what I'm saying? Like that to me was extremely scary, and it got so bad that I looked at my wife and said, I'm not like contemplating stuff, but you got to take me to the hospital. If there's a definition of the deepest, darkest of ideations, I got to go. And so I spent 7 days in a padded room talking to good people. God always does this for me, no matter where I end up, man. He brings the right person and the right stuff into my life. It was great. The chaplain was awesome. Like there was just so much. But I got drugs, I got help, I got therapy, and I kept trucking and picked up on things that I've always known and fixed myself, and eventually had that blow up like I was talking about that got me into shortly thereafter had that blow up at work, and then got me into rehab and caused me to be like, okay, I've known it before. I really know it now. I am the dude that they talk about in the big book. Like I fit all the criteria, right? And so good and bad. So anyways, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it.
Well, I'll mention this. I would say what your transition and how you felt matches up with my transition, how I felt. And I would say that is probably more the standard than the exception to the rule for guys transitioning out. I mean, my first job working, I got a bug in here now. Do you send it over here? Anyway, my transition out with my first job being with the submarine battery ICA, and the amount of time that I was on travel by myself, I had never felt, I mean, I'm a pretty isolated guy and I don't necessarily have an issue with that. But at that point in my life, that amount of isolation, I mean, the only person I had a personal connection to was my wife, period, bar none. That was it. That was it. And I there was a year I was out 200 days that year. I was gone. So I was like, what am I doing? What is my purpose? And I was there, man. I was right there with you. I mean, I never got any professional help, but I wasn't too far off from things going.
You're in a dark place. Yeah,
they could have went bad. And one thing I struggle with that I try to, for guys that are out now that want to connect with the guys that are going to go through that is when I got out, the guys that I'm with now, right? All my EDIV guys, there's 10 of us that we talk all the time. They were all still in. And so they had no idea what I was going through. And it was like, now that I've done it, when they transition out, it's like, I know this is going to happen to them. They are going to be not understand why everybody feels distant and why they feel this way. And they absolutely need somebody to reassure that they've got their back. They're thinking about them, answer questions and just be connected. Even if there's nothing you can do, just be connected to them. That's huge. One last thing, as a tip, because I asked you for your tips for guys transitioning out and dealing with that, the background, or the background is not really the right term, but just how people look at ex-military guys is one thing I did that I didn't realize it then, but I realized the benefit that is to me now is be humble and intentionally seek out a mentor. And it doesn't need to be somebody that was ex-Navy, just somebody that you go, they're in a very similar role as me. Maybe they're one step up or whatever. But if I could do my job as well as they do their job, life would be really good. And I'll give a shout out, Dave Mateer. I still work with him. We're in the same department. He's an awesome guy. But whenever I started, for a while, I kind of walked around lost. Like, I don't even know what this pump is you guys are talking about. I'm trying to figure it out. And Dave took me on and kind of put me under his wing. And whenever I had really stupid questions that would make me look like an idiot, I would ask Dave instead of asking everybody else. That would just be like, oh yeah, military guy. He doesn't know anything. Look, he's an idiot. This is why. Dave would be like, okay, I'm going to explain it to you, but also I'm not going to go tell the whole world that you don't know what you're doing, because you don't know what you're doing. And, and now I can look back or look forward 6 years later, and Dave and I, we still work together. And sometimes he asks me why something works a certain way or is a problem. And we're good coworkers and kind of bounce ideas off each other. But, had his mentorship not happened off the get-go, I mean, that I could be in a different job. I could have ended up somewhere totally different. So if you can find somebody that's willing to put in a little bit of effort and be humble, that really helps you bridge the gap between making that transition successfely. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man, dude. Yeah, and that's what I meant by making sure you don't do it alone. And listen, hey, I'll tell you right now, I got a lifesaver I got to call out. Mentor or not, he was a friend, and he definitely saw my need as much as he gave me a hard time about it. He was I want to say, because he was a staff pickup, so he might have been an 8-year mechanic, Navy nuke. And funny story, I've told the story before in some of the other episodes. He actually stole my job from me before I even had it. He was a nuke mechanic that worked down in technical and maintenance, and then applied for an operations instructor job. And so basically he was in-house, so he's an easy hire. So they picked him over me. But anyways, so me and him ended up going through the same program together, but he already had all this knowledge of the plant and how things function and how things operate. I'm going to say that dude might have very well saved my life, because I might have killed somebody for sure if I had not had his balance there with me. And that's Joel Davis. I'm going to definitely give him an honorable mention at the end of this, even though at times he was, because he's a younger buck and he was definitely a super millennial, and he was a Navy hater, and me and him butt heads. Dude, I'll tell you what, man, he was always there for me when I really needed him, and he still is, and he's good people, and I keep in touch with him, and I'm very grateful for his influence. And so I'm going to definitely shout out to him. And thanks for reminding me. That's a good piece. But that awesome. That mentorship thing, that's so huge. So definitely.
And certainly once you have a successful transition, seek out, be that mentor to the next guy. And you know what? People are people, and you got to love them all. It doesn't have to be for just ex-military guys. That's something we need more of that in this world, no matter what. I really enjoy the mentorship I'm able to give my junior engineers now, when they, sometimes it's not necessarily technical, and often it's actually not, because they're so smart, and they've got so much figured out technically, but it's more like, this is a Justin Law term, it's more damage control. Never talking about explaining and it's like, and I've referenced you in a lot of conversations with these junior engineers. Like, listen, we know what the problem is, or we think we know what the problem is, but we need to play this in a certain way, because if we let it keep going down the path we're on, it's going to be really bad. But we can still solve it, but we need to do it in a smart way and do some damage control here. Yeah. And that's one thing that's like, that everything's so black and white. The younger you are, that was me. Everything was real black and white. Just if it's broken, call it broken. Well, not always the best play, from a long-term perspective. So, Good. Yeah.
All right, man.
Well,
that's it.
That's all.
How
long have we been doing this for?
2.5 hours, bro.
Does that include the break or two?
It does. It still includes the break. Yeah.
Okay, so we're probably still over 2 hours and some change.
That's right,
dude.
That's right.
All right, man.
It's good stuff, man. I'm gonna hurry up and I'm gonna make a decision on how I'm gonna quickly get this video edited and out there.
Okay. Well, if you have to do some edits, make it so I don't sound like an idiot. Okay.
You're fine, man. I think we did plenty of just being who we are, and maybe if we sound like an idiot, it'll only make people laugh.
All right. I appreciate it.
I think we got some serious.
Yeah, glad we could get together and do this.
Dude, it was awesome.
All right.
And we will have to stay in touch. I'm loving this because hopefully that's what this does too, is keep me in. And hey, I'm gonna head up that way and tell your family. Yeah, thank you.
Bring them all, dude. Bring all the kids, everybody.
I will.
We got lots of space here.
That'd be awesome. Hey, same goes for you. If you find yourself wanting to go south at any point in time, just for fun, listen, we'll take you to the beach and you can hang out here.
How far are you from Gulf Shores?
Hey, how far are we from Gulf Shores?
Alabama?
Yeah.
Not too far. Hold on.
Not too far. She's gonna look.
You know, you probably don't know Johnny DeWeese. He came on. He was a junior guy. Anyways, he's getting his commission. He's going to flight school, but he gets married in Gulf Shores this late summer. So Jade and I will be coming down with. Well, I think we're just taking Flynn with us. So if you guys are close by, we should. And you know what? It's not like the whole division will be there. I mean, I think he probably has like 15 guys off the Mississippi,
bro,
that are going to be there. So
listen. Yeah, we're 4 hours away. 4 hours and 40 minutes. We're 5 hours away from there.
Yeah.
Depending on the trip you have to take, or any trip that anybody that I know has to take back.
Yeah.
If you cross in Interstate 20 in Mississippi at any point, like especially on your travel down, dude, you got to stop by.
Yeah,
and maybe even
we're dropping all my kids off at my three oldest at my parents' house in Kingsport, Tennessee. So we're going to be coming down kind of
that way.
But Tyler, I'll be driving right through there because he's coming from Dallas Fort Worth. But anyways, we'll have to figure out that it's out there. We'll figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, figure out how I'm going to come see you.
Yeah. All right, man.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. Be a whole
hey,
bunch
tell your wife and your children I haven't met yet that we love them. We love you.
Yeah.
And we'll keep in touch, bro.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Love you, buddy.
Later.
Later.